So you want to get into writing, okay? You have so many ideas for characters and storylines and plots, and you love it, okay? But your only problem is you feel like your writing sucks. What can you do? Let's talk about it on this episode of the StoryPod podcast. Come on in, bestie. Welcome to StoryPod, where we do the doing of story development together. Brought to you by Creative BFF. Yes. Okay. So first and foremost, obviously we're not in our usual setting. Okay. Obviously, girl, let me check it. Okay. I have to make sure this mic was picking up, girl. Obviously, we are in a different location right now. I am at the office. All right. I did not go to the gym today because I didn't sleep well. You didn't need to know that, but I told you anyway. And so my break time, rather than going to the gym, is going to be recording a video because this weekend got away from me when I should have been recording. There were other things happening. So here we are at work. This is real rap raw. Okay. Mickey Mouse operation. Anyway, enough of the preamble. As always, if you have a question, okay, please feel free to shoot me an email at ash@creativebff.com, or you can go to my website, creativebff.com, and you can send me a message in the contact section, or you can send me a message here. Can you do that on YouTube? I've never tried to message anybody directly on YouTube. So if you can do that here, you can do that here also. But yes, I would love to be your creative BFF if you need any help, or if you have a question that I can answer here on the podcast. As always, would love to do that. But since we have not yet connected in that way, I do have a question from Reddit, and that's our bread and butter here. I love answering questions, and hopefully these things, even though they're not necessarily specific to yours or my situation as we're writing, hopefully we can be general enough that we'll be able to apply it to our own process. So we have another question from Reddit. As always, I'm going to avert my eye, girl, my one eye. I'm going to avert my eyes. Okay. So I can read the question. And the question is from the r/writing questions subreddit. And the poster says, I am trying to get into writing. I have a bunch of ideas and characters. The thing that is scaring me away is the writing. My sentences are bland and pretty terrible, as well as kind of blocky and hard to read, as probably noticeable in this post. Is there any tips for making more smooth and interesting sentences? Now, I find that to be a very interesting question, because often on this podcast, we more so address things like story structure and plot and those kinds of things, character development and things. But the actual act of writing, not the act, but rather the process of getting the words on the page, we haven't really discussed that too much. And the first answer that came to mind may not be one that we like, because it's not a quick fix. And in today's world of, I want it now, girl, I need it immediately. We want to know what's the 10-step process that I can go through that's going to make me an award-winning writer in a week, or 30 days max. That's not the answer that I have. The first thought that came to mind was to read a lot. And I feel like that was in my own writing journey. I'm not saying that I'm the best writer out here, but listen, your girl can smith some words. She could put some words on the page, you know what I'm saying? But the thing that I think that even got me to that point at all was actually reading a lot. And thankfully for myself, and I feel like this is probably most writers' truth. I would imagine so, that if you love to write, you also love to read. So thankfully, before I even considered being a writer or enjoying writing, I have always been a reader. And I think that is what has really helped me to understand and instinctively, I feel, be able to put together sentences when I'm doing my own writing. What happens when you read a lot is it begins to basically build, this is not the word I want to say, but basically kind of build an archive in your mind, in your writing, in your writing toolbox. You begin to build an archive of different types of sentence structures, of vocabulary, of how shorter sentences, punchy, direct sentences can play alongside more languid, verbose, poetic sentences, and how all of those things come together to make a whole, right? How to make the whole feeling that a piece of writing gives you in your mind. Because there's definitely, when you're reading someone's writing who knows what they're doing, I feel like, this is my experience, I feel like it goes beyond just, these are the words on the page, and even beyond just, okay, these words on the page are creating the image in my mind, but it also, there's a feeling I feel like one receives when they read something. And I'm going to share a sentence that did that for me. It's from the book, The Hunger Games. I'm sure we're all familiar with it. In the first chapter, on the first page, girl, probably in the second paragraph, she wrote, the author, Suzanne Collins wrote, listen, I wrote it down, okay? She wrote, "Prim's face is as fresh as a raindrop, as lovely as the primrose for which she was named." The part of that got me, that had me in a chokehold, girl, was the use of the phrase fresh as a raindrop, because I would have never connected raindrop to description of a person's face. And I had a weird experience, and this might sound weird, where I literally felt how refreshing that was. I could almost feel like I was drinking a cool glass of water. That's kind of weird, but that's what I mean by when someone has put together a beautiful sentence, a beautiful page, a beautiful body of writing. Sometimes it can transcend beyond just, ooh, that was a nice word. That's a nice vocabulary word. That was a great sentence. And the whole body of the work gives you a feeling. But I think that you can only really get to that point by reading a lot. And listen, I wrote some notes, so I'm gonna look at my notes, okay? Sorry if I keep looking over here. I don't know why I keep looking over there. I need to look at you in your face. So another thing that you can do as you are reading, and this is gonna take time, I'm sorry. Great writers, I feel, and I'm not saying I'm a great writer, so this is not me talking about myself, but I feel like great writers are not made overnight. So you just have to accept the fact that maybe you're not going to be writing your magnum opus the first time you put words to the page. Maybe you will. I don't know, girl. Listen, live your life. But it's more likely that you're going to write and you're not going to love it. And you're going to write and you're not going to love it. But eventually you'll get to the point where it's like, ooh, this is my style. Ooh, I like that. And I think that a lot of that comes through reading different people's styles, reading different writers and finding what you like in each writer's style, writers that you admire, whose writing touches you, who you really enjoy. And specifically in this case, beyond just the fact that the story is interesting, the plot is interesting, you like the way the characters are developed, but the pure craft of how they put the words on the page, when you find writers that you like the way they do that, I would say, maybe I've never done this. So this is just something that came to mind. I cannot vouch for this. I've never done this on paper, but I think that I do it mentally. So what that is maybe mapping sentences that you see that you like. How did they put the parts of a sentence together on the page? What about this particular sentence did you like? Add it to, and this depends on what type of learner you are. Are you someone who learns and you really get it in your mind as you're writing it down? Maybe start a journal of beautifully crafted sentences. That might feel like a lot. I've never done it, but perhaps that could help you if that's how you study, if that's how you memorize and learn well. And that's not to say that you would then just lift that sentence and put it in your work, but understanding the construction of that sentence, I think becomes, girl, I lost the thought. Just like understanding the construction of that sentence. If it helps you to write it down, I would say absolutely do it. And then you can put your own words in there in that construction. Another thing that, and this is a side note a little bit, I feel like creative writing is different. This is not going to be a hot take. This is not going to be mind blowing. Can be different than academic, super grammatically correct writing. And I say that as an example. I have often might not be the right word, but I have at times done, constructed sentences that were not necessarily perfectly grammatically correct. And I knew that I was doing that, but I did it because I liked the way it flowed with the sentences around it, right? So that off the top of the head could look like starting a sentence with and, starting a sentence with but. Now, in my mind, what I'm remembering of elementary and middle school and maybe even high school grammar studies, English studies, that is not, what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to start a sentence with those words. Where are they? Conjunctions? Conjunction, junction, what's your function? I don't know. I don't know how to tell you the parts of the sentence, okay? It's just in me now, okay? But that's not necessarily correct academically, but if it feels right in the flow of your creative writing, I say do it. So that's another little side note. But so mapping sentences in pieces of work that you like, figuring out, breaking it down, like what did they do? Where did they put the subject? And what else? What other parts is it? Predicate? I don't know what other parts of sentence there are. Sorry. That's what reading does. You feel it, but you can't necessarily define it. Like, oh, that's the predicate, that's the subject, this is the whatever other part of sentence. But it's just in you. It just becomes natural. Okay, like speaking, breathing. But that could potentially help you mapping sentences that you like, and then you can just have some general constructions that you can pull from. And I think that even doing that eventually, because I think that all of this is to get to the goal of having it be innate, the goal of, I think, starting a sentence mapping journal or whatever, if you decide to do that, is not necessarily to be able to go back and just like, okay, so this is the type of flipping through, this is the type of sentence that I want to put here. So it's very like, stiff. But the idea of doing that is so that it becomes natural and ingrained and organic in you through the process of you having seen it, you understand it, you've taken note of it, and now it's just in you and it can just come back out. That's the goal of it, right? It's not for you to be robotronic and refer to your notes and now I'm just going to plug that sentence. You just want it to flow, right? When you're in that flow state of writing. So the next note, that might have been my last note. Basically, oh no, it wasn't. I lied. My next note was still in the vein of reading a lot, is to read different genres of books, different eras, okay? Different eras of books. I have found that reading a book, even that was written in the 60s or the 50s or the 70s, and the way language was used then in literary and creative and fictional writing versus what we see a lot in writing now, especially since in those different eras, in eras before our time, right? There was, I don't know the history of book publishing and all that kind of stuff, but there wasn't this very, excuse me, democratized, would that be the word? This very, low barrier to entry, which I'm not, the way I phrased that made it sound bad. I'm not using that as a diss. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but there was a process in order to be a published writer that you had to go through. And part of that process was your writing had to be approved and edited and read through and all this kind of stuff. And there's a certain level of quality when you're going to a reputable publisher that you have to maintain and that they help you to maintain. So reading books from different eras where that system is in place, not saying that it's better than what we have now, because I love the fact that so many people can just self-publish books. I have self-published and I plan to self-publish in the future. I love reading independent and self-published books. That's probably the bulk of what I read. But also reading books that have gone through editing processes that just represent a different type of language, a different type of colloquialism, a different type of speaking, excuse me, in a different time in society can be very educational and very interesting. And it may give you new vocabulary and sentence structures and perhaps even an elegance to your writing that maybe you would not necessarily see in more modern books. And I'm not saying that's also not the case, but there's just a different type of language that happens in other eras, and that could be very interesting, and perhaps that could inform you and help you to develop your particular writing style, right? Yeah, girl, I think that's it. Pretty much reading. So the TLDR, read a lot. This will help you to grow your vocabulary. It will help you to get a sense of like writing rhythm and meter. Is that a thing? That feels very Shakespearean. Okay, something is coming back from high school, but not back enough for me to explain it. The flow of sentences, how to juxtapose different sentence structures and constructions together, i.e. short, punchy, direct to the point type of sentences, one word sentences, for example, versus longer, taking your time, more poetic, more verbose to a certain extent. We don't want no floral, flowery language necessarily. That might be your jam. So do that. More languid, type of sentences and how those things create an overall feeling in the work, an overall impression in the work. And as you're doing all of your reading, if it helps you, if this is how you learn and study, perhaps keep a journal of different sentences. So doing some sentence mapping, break down what you liked in how they wrote that particular sentence or how this paragraph went, and whatever way to kind of keep that in your mind. And it's not necessarily about you remembering all of the words that they used, all the punctuation and things like that specifically, but it's about you remembering or feeling or getting down inside of you how that type of writing, flowed together, how it made you feel. Why did it feel professional, excellent, elegant, interesting, fluid, all of that kind of stuff. That's the goal of keeping like a journal of sentence mapping, is to make it organic so that it flows out of you, not so much so that I can take this sentence structure and plot it, put it right there like a puzzle piece in place. And so unfortunately, this work is going to take time, and allow it to take time. Do your study, read. It's fun. If you love to write, I assume you love to read, so it's enjoyable. Read things that you enjoy. Obviously, I'm not saying go read a language primer, an English grammar dictionary or whatever, but read books that you enjoy. Find writers whose writing you admire and figure out why you admire their writing. What are they doing? And the more you read, the more ingrained and the more natural it will come to you, and the more your voice and your style, because you'll probably pull little bits from all of the authors that you like and the ways they write. Now listen, girl, that's all. A little quickie. We're out of our normal element, a little bit out of our comfort zone, so please forgive me if I was a little bit all over the place. But listen, we're all friends here. We're all family here. Okay. I hope that you have been enjoying your day, and I hope that this was helpful. If this is a question that you may have had or a concern that you may have about your own writing, listen, writing takes time. Becoming a good writer takes time. Becoming good at anything takes time. And we just got to let it take the time that it's going to take. So anyway, listen, have a wonderful day. I will see you next time. Okay. Same bat time, same bat station. I don't know why I've been signing out all of my videos like that, but listen, love you, girl. See you next time, girl.